Hey everybody, this is Steve Moore, owner of Run More, this brick and mortar running shop located in Westminster, Maryland. We're going to be talking today actually about a couple shoes from our pals Newton out there in Boulder, Colorado. So they actually have two brand new shoes that just released, one called the Catalyst and one called the Fusion. They're both sort of in a different category from what you've probably been seeing from Newton the past couple years. So we'll dive into sort of what separates those from previous Newton versions of shoes and just what you should expect if you're checking out the new Catalyst and Fusion. But first, I just wanted to give some information about some updates on some other Newton models that just came out as well. So we're going to first dive into the new updates on the Fate and Kismet 7. So we're a running shop. We've been carrying Newton since we opened in 2014. We've always been a big fan of this brand. And unlike most running shops, we carry sort of a different lineup than what you might see at other running shops around the country. You know, the Gravity and the Motion are the two biggest heavy hitters from Newton that you see a lot. They are their aggressive, super poppy, super luggy, fast-paced shoe. They're super popular in the triathlon world or some of the longer distance stuff. They're a $190 shoe, and it's a great shoe. They're really fun, but where my store is located, we don't have tons of people coming looking to drop $190 on a pair of shoes. So we carry sort of what I consider is their more accessible versions of the Kismet and the Fate. So the Kismet is essentially a little more cushioned, a little less aggressive, a little less price point version of the Motion. This is a stability model shoe, has a little bit more of that Newtonium cushion throughout the shoe, and the lugs don't sit out quite as aggressive. And the lugs is really the wheelhouse of what makes Newton Newton. These little compressed air pockets that sit above your toe box there, they're designed to sort of propel you forward. They compress, they expand, they pop you forward. Back in the day, Newton used to have different categories of pop depending on how aggressive these lugs were. With Pop 1 being your most aggressive, Pop 1 Plus being like a racing shoe, but it really dictates how far those come out. And when you put people in a Newton that's not used to it, it's a really interesting sensation. And it is one of those shoes where people either love it or hate it as soon as they get into it. Coming from like a background of racing cross country and track, it reminds me of putting on like a pair of cross-country spikes or track spikes. Like you can hear somebody running in Newtons on the ground because these have a unique sound when you're hitting the ground in them. Some people that it just feels it's too different. It almost feels like you're hitting a ledge, especially if you're somebody who's much more on your heels. It almost feels cumbersome getting across those lugs. So if you're somebody who's just doing everyday plodding around your neighborhood or just kind of getting into running, having that aggressive $190, really low drop, really poppy shoe, it is a very different sensation. But if you're somebody who's looking to transition into a little bit more of a forefoot striker, a little more pop in your toes, just looking for something fun and different, the Fate and the Kismet are really accessible options for you. Again, with your Kismet being your stability model and your Fate being your everyday trainer. I actually botched that. This is the Fate and this is the Kismet. So excuse me on that. The Kismet is your stability model and the Fate is your neutral model. You can kind of tell when you're looking at the Kismet, just like in the Motion, it has a little differential here to show that this does have some medial support to it. So if you're running and you're somebody who overpronates, the Kismet and the Motion are going to be your stable friends. If you're somebody who's more in the neutral category, your Gravity and your Fate are your neutral friends. Both the Fate and the Kismet and the Gravity and the Motion all sort of have similar weight classes. They're all in that mid-8 range for weight, 8.8 on the men's, closer to 7 high on the women's side. So you can feel that it's a lighter shoe than most of the shoes on that category for like a longer distance shoe, especially something that's sort of aggressive like that. It has a nice breathable upper mesh to it. It's got a nice little padded heel collar to it. In some of the previous Newtons I've run in, I found I had a hard time sort of getting the shoe to fit properly. Like I had some where the laces felt super long, some I had to do the marathon loop to get my heel right. But the new uppers that they put on the Fate and the Kismet seem to feel good. They're nice and breathable. They're not too wide. They're not too narrow either. Because I've had some both ways. I have a pair of racing shoes from Newton that I really like that to me are a little too wide in my opinion. But these actually fit my foot quite well. And they're fun. They give me some cushion. I can feel the pop in it. Not as aggressive as I might find in the Gravity or the Motion. Great for everyday training. Really fun shoe. So we have our Fate and our Kismet 7. They're available now. They come in just one color on the men's, one color on the women's. Again, here is our women's Fate. Here is our men's Kismet. They have each corresponding shoe on the men's and women's the other side. They're really fun. Great update if you're looking to get into the brand and try something for an everyday mid-cushion shoe from Newton. The Kismet and the Fate are fantastic entry-level shoes for you for everyday training. So now I want to transition over to the Fusion and the Catalyst. So these both came out on the same day as well. So the Fusion is like your everyday casual shoe. It's interesting that both these sort of have a similar look because these are two different models. These are two different shoes. They both have this sort of interesting mesh upper to it, with the Catalyst having a sort of see-through. I'm not sure if you can kind of make that out, but you can actually see my foot all the way through it. So the Fusion is sort of being like a more traditional casual shoe, which is interesting because it's something Newton's never really had. You can certainly run in it. You know, they're sort of billing this as this all-day, fun, casual, gym, light run kind of shoe. It's really light. And it could be something that if you were wearing to the office and then you had to jump on the gym and you wanted to go run or something, you could totally do that in this. I probably, if you were looking to be more serious on the running side of it, I would probably lean you in a different direction. But if you're looking for just a fun, cool shoe that has a little bit of that Newton feel, this is a great one. And because it doesn't have as aggressive lugs to it, it doesn't feel as Newton-y. It just feels really good and cushiony. It has a full midsole of Newtonium, which is sort of their soft and squishy, yet still responsive midsole material that they're using there. The other difference between both the Fusion and the Catalyst is the drop has changed. So we're talking about going from like the gravity and the motion that have a 1.5 millimeter heel to toe drop, which is also kind of hard to explain because when you have the lugs, it actually feels like you're almost negative drop when you put those really aggressive lugs on a low drop shoe. We talked about the Fate and the Kismet having a 4.5 millimeter drop, so that's adjusted a little bit. But on both the Catalyst and the Fusion, we have a 6 millimeter heel to toe drop, which is pretty common just for everyday trainers and some of the other brands that we carry here. So this to me feels not un-Newton-like because it still has some of those categories, but it just feels like you're putting on just almost like an everyday casual shoe. It's really nice, it's really cushy. You can run in it. I probably wouldn't personally. I like this shoe just kind of putzing around. I've actually been wearing them around. They're really comfortable. I like the way they look, and I've really enjoyed just kind of putzing around in them, to be honest with you. And for $120, that's about what you should expect. I will tell you that both the Catalyst and the Fusion are unisex shoes, so just make sure if you are purchasing that you're kind of aware of that. I'm not usually a big fan of unisex shoes because I feel like sometimes the width and the sizing isn't ideal between those. It's like maybe a little wide for a female, maybe a little narrow for a man. I actually have found no issues with this, and a couple of staff here have both Catalyst and Fusions, and they're all unisex, and no gender has had any issues with width on it, so that's always nice. So moving over to the Catalyst. I really like this shoe. There was a shoe that Newton used to have called the Aha, and we always called the Aha as our really entry-level shoe to Newton. It went away, and we have been looking for that shoe from Newton for that. It has some pop. You could totally run it if you wanted to just run in it, fantastic. You wanted to just use it as a gym shoe, fantastic. Even as a casual shoe, that's great too. This has a different midsole material than you're going to find in the Fusion, and you can tell walking between the two, you have a little bit more responsiveness. This shoe is a little bit firmer by design, so it has a little bit more bounce to it when you're going. Still has that 6 millimeter drop, still has that nice cushiony feel to it, but it is firmer than the Fusion, again, by design. There's also a couple different features in this shoe that they've done, which is make this a more environmentally sound shoe. Most of this shoe is made from recycled materials, and this shoe will biodegrade 400% faster than most shoes. It takes the shoe about 40 years in a landfill to finally biodegrade, and this will go much faster than that, specifically using castor beans and other kind of fun materials in here and recycled product to try to make this shoe a little bit more environmentally sound. I really do like this weird upper to it. I know it's goofy when you can kind of look through and see your socks, see your foot, all that kind of stuff. So you kind of, the first time I put it on, I had really bright socks on, and I was like, oh, hey, there are my socks. So we've had brands that have done that before, and it doesn't seem to bother people. It's just different, and I kind of like it. Just know that if you're somebody who's going to be using this shoe in the dead of winter, your foot might get a little cold because you can literally see all the way down to your sock in here. This comes in at $130, so it is $10 more than your Fusion, but you're going to get much more out of the Catalyst if you're looking for a shoe to do a couple different sports and not just wear casual, something that you can run, lift, gym, all that stuff. So that's a fun, nice update from Newton. So again, if you were somebody who'd been wearing an Aha years ago and like us were very sad when it went away, I think the Catalyst is the perfect shoe to come in and fill that gap to bring somebody in. We actually used to have this stupid little graduation from Newton when somebody would come in and start with like, I'm new to this, I'm new to running, or I've heard things about Newton, or just curious, and we'd say, you should try the Aha, because it's a great starter shoe in a Newton. And if you liked it and you're like, I can do a little bit more aggressive, fantastic. You've now graduated to a Fate or a Kismet. And if you go through a Fate and a Kismet and you're like, I could be even poppier and more aggressive and more on my toes, Great, you're going to go to the motion or the gravity. So you sort of have different Newtons in the family you can pivot to depending on your stability needs and sort of the running that you're doing. That's our quick breakdown on the new Newton stuff coming out. Again, the Fate, the Kismet, the Fusion, the Catalyst. They all came out at the same time, and we're happy that we have all of them. So if you're curious, feel free to shoot us an email about questions, leave it in the comments. We're always happy to answer them. And again, if you shop through us, enter promo code RUNMORE, just one word, Run More, 2 O's and more, like my last name. We'll ship it out to you, 10% off and free shipping. Do me a solid as well. If you enjoy what we're doing here, give us a like and a subscription. It really helps us find new customers out there in the internet world. Have a great day, and as always, happy running. Stay safe out there, folks.